Yes.
We're the best. On
Become prepared.
yes, on today's show. By the way, you still haven't told me what the song is to open up.
You still haven't guessed.
Yeah, that's not how it works. That is not how it works. Anyways, on today's show, we've got a fun show. It's going to be a little bit of a mix of baseball slash football talk. Usually we talk about industry stuff, but unfortunately nothing really happened in the industry yesterday. So nothing to really talk about there. Right, Dave?
That's right, Dave.
Nothing to see here.
Nothing happened around 12:30 or anything that people would be frustrated about. So I'd say push forward.
All right. On today's show, we have Dr. Renee Miller, who will be leading this dysfunctional ship. Also, Dave Loughran filling in for Davis Maddock, who busted a stitch doing the show all by himself yesterday in his mouth. So he's going to be out until Thursday, and Dave's going to be filling in for him. Not sure if he feels bad or not, but it is what it is. And then Derek Carty. Derek Carty, you might know him as the baseball savant. And Derek, you really have nothing to contribute as far as NFL goes, but we have a nice little slate of MLB games. And
thanks for sugarcoating it, David.
I'm sorry. But I mean,
we'll get Derek involved.
Yeah, as much as he does not know about NFL, he knows like that much more about MLB. So let's not call it what it is. Like, I'm not saying that I'm an MLB expert at all, because everyone else says it for me. So that's just not my style. But yeah, Renee, why don't you go ahead and get us started?
All right. Well, we don't want to completely ignore that something did happen at 12:30 yesterday. A lot of good commentary and a lot of bad commentary has already circulated on the issue of the FanDuel crash, shutdown, malfunction, difficulties of yesterday. There's a lot of opinions on how it was handled and how it should be handled or should have been handled. Lots of them very rational. I personally wasn't that affected. I would have, I went to try to maybe tinker a little bit, but all in all, I didn't cancel my games. I was, felt okay about the lineups that I had in, even though I had AJ Green in a lot of lineups. It's just not my style to try to take advantage of a loophole like that. So I just rolled with what I had, and it's maybe going to be close to a break-even proposition.
I personally would have jumped on the opportunity.
And did you?
I don't play on FanDuel much, but I've had issues like that in the past. It's unfortunate. There's 17 weeks of the season, and nobody wants to see anything like that happen. You want to say it's understandable, and I'm not technologically savvy as most. I think Dave would attest to that. But the fact of the matter is, people are upset, and we'll see what happens with the resolution as it goes forward. And so hopefully it doesn't happen again. But it's just unfortunate at the time that it happened. Scheduled maintenance at 3 a.m. is okay. Nobody's going to give you a hard. Actually, there's enough degenerates out there that probably will be furious with 3 a.m. maintenance. But you got a lot of guys that are just breaking into the industry and checking it out, and it's a shame that happened, and it's a shame that there wasn't some way to account for that possibly happening, right, and work around it. But when it all comes down to it, there's plenty more games out there. There's MLB tonight. We got football next week, and if you got your funds back, you got your money back, and you know what? You're just going to have to live with it. Some people that sit there and harp on it forever for the next 2 years, that's all you'll hear about. It's just not worth their breath. Keep playing, and if you're good enough, you'll win money and you'll be satisfied in the long run.
Yeah, I think it's just the opportunity cost for football people because there are so few weeks. So even if you got your money back, you lost out on potential winnings. Possibly.
Hey, Monday through Thursday games.
Yeah, you had those 2 game slates. So obviously, there were people that kind of used it as a free roll I know, and that's kind of what you're talking about, Renee, like,
Yeah.
and what people have been talking about, like, so this might not have been handled right from, like, multiple sides, like, FanDuel assuming games, so when people cancel out of their contests, FanDuel assumed their games.
Right.
A bunch of people have a problem with that. We can talk about that in a second. And then also, people using it as a free roll that already had their lineup set, but obviously there were a lot of injuries those first 30 minutes, and so if their player went out, then they went ahead and canceled their games. I know of one person, and I'm not going to say names, but one person kind of freaked out, and Justin Hunter didn't really have a good game, and it was like the first quarter of that Green Bay Jets game, and they freaked out and just decided to cancel their contest.
They had Jordy Nelson, huh?
They had Jordy
And
Nelson
Rodgers.
and Aaron Rodgers, and were up in all of their not just all their contests, but all their GPP contests as well.
Oh.
So maybe a little bit of DFS karma there. Maybe. I'm not going to say names, but there was certainly people who took advantage of that. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong to do that, because obviously it was
No, it's a personal choice.
right, and it was FanDuel's mistake that even allowed that to happen.
And you have to consider that if everybody else has the intention of doing this, everybody's using it as a free roll. You either do it or you don't, but it's not like you're going to be looked down upon for doing it when everyone else has. But I do believe in DFS karma, absolutely, and I've had it happen to me firsthand several times. There was one time where I unlocked a ticket, $200 ticket. I won't talk about what site or where this was, but I unlocked a ticket, and it gave me like 11 of them. And this is when I first started playing. Unlocked 11 of them. I said, what do I do? What do I do? Well, I played them because I just started playing. I just started playing.
I like that he owns right up to it too.
I can't. Yeah, why not? Come on, you're telling me. Listen, I won. I took second place in a really big tournament, and I lost I lost a good 3 weeks straight after that. I gave back almost everything that I had won. So it's not. I know that it sounds ridiculous, me saying, oh, it's not worth it, but anytime, and there's only been, a select couple of occasions, really that one time where I took advantage of it, but when you see 11 $200 tickets pop up, it's really difficult to say, all right, let me email these guys and see if I can return these, and I didn't.
Wow.
But it was a long time ago when I was
It's
working
like when they
with
don't charge you for the beer at the bottom of your shopping cart at the grocery
Right.
store. You don't realize
Right.
you're putting it in your
Right,
trunk.
right. And then you drink it. And,
You drink it.
Get a DUI.
Dave,
But-
I think I know what site that is. Is it still around today?
Dave, let's not talk about this. The fact of the matter is I didn't have a bankroll, really, I didn't have a significant bankroll at that point, and I was trying to, make something of it.
Nice.
Dude, I mean, relax. It happened. It's over with, and
I'm
I
relaxed.
won, I win, I lost, I won, I lost, and I move on.
Now you're winning again.
Yeah, and next time I get 11 tickets, I'll have that exact same dilemma.
Yeah, Renee, what do you think about the whole assuming contest thing?
Well, I mean, apparently from what I've read and heard, it would have been challenging or impossible to zero those lineups out, but that would have been the right
Course
Action.
of action.
yeah, that would have been the right course of action, is to zero them out, in my opinion, rather than to assume them and take the winnings or losses.
Yeah.
Now you ask yourself, these lineups that are being assumed, many of them you would assume are going to be lineups that aren't optimal lineups because they were assumed because people dropped them. That's what you're assuming. But at the same time, Dave just brings up a guy who freaked out because he had Justin Hunter, and then his lineup didn't look good, and then that ended up happening. So when they assume lineups, it could end up being a great lineup, especially considering NFL is one of those sports where anything can happen. So I'm with Renee on this one.
And I mean, I'm really curious what percent or how many dollars worth of lineups got exchanged or turned in or canceled. I don't think they'll ever tell us, but
No.
I'm very curious what the amount was.
No, I don't think we'll find out that.
$18.
Right.
It's an unfortunate thing that happened. To be honest. Like no one wins. Like not even DraftKings can really be seen as a winner, even though they're direct competition because
Right. It hurts the industry.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Dave, do you remember 2 years ago when it happened?
Yeah, but I mean, at that point, number one, like it was just like for certain people, and they got like everything up. Like it was just down for a specific period of time. But
yeah, this was a colossal disaster.
This was like you kept on expecting it to kind of go back up because this has happened periodically in the past where it just goes down for a couple minutes, and like other sites have done the same thing. I remember drafting did it so. There is obviously going to be some server issues when they are overloaded. So it's like it's kind of a good problem to have, but it also if you get 71 million or however much in funding, you need to have backups in place. Like there's just no excuse for it. I mean,
that's what somebody said. Like it's understandable. I don't think it is understandable at all or excusable.
Not when you're spending that much on.
Not when you're spending that much money.
Yeah.
It's absolutely
Why are you
not.
spending all that money? Dan Bach estimated $10 million they're spending to bring in new people this preseason and this early weeks. If you're spending that much to bring new people in, you have to have the infrastructure to support.
Right, and that's why I'm saying it's understandable that something like that could happen, but it should not happen. You know, I understand that those are risks, but if you can't account for those risks and handle those risks, you know, because especially considering it's happened in the past. It may not have been 30 minutes leading up to kickoff, even though I think it was that one time. But yeah, Renee, if you don't have something set in place to handle that, it's really difficult to overlook that and brush it under the carpet. Because I'm an understanding guy, and I understand that things go wrong despite the size and the magnitude of any operation you have going on. But with this, it's the biggest, most important thing is between 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock that everything runs smoothly.
Right.
Steve
and they just had come off of the problem of not paying anybody, not paying out last weekend's contest until like Tuesday.
Right.
So
yeah, they definitely need to get their tech team in order over there. Steve said might not have been infrastructure, could easily be one line of bad code. He also says, or somehow, some way, Steven Strasburg may have hijacked.
Mike Rath said that he thought there was a water main break in the FanDuel office.
Yeah.
So that might have had something to do with it.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely dark cloud. But a lot of injuries yesterday, too. Like
it was just a brutal day.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Unless you played guys that did not have those injuries. Like if you avoided landmines, yesterday wasn't as much about like hitting the right players. It was about avoiding landmines. Like
absolutely.
Like not playing Gronkowski or Hunter
or Green or Charles
Green. Yeah, all those guys. Like there's a bunch of landmines, and if you just like stayed away from most of them, Colston, another one, you were in a pretty good spot.
That's why when you throw multiple lineups in a GPP, it can really benefit you unless you have some guy universally spread throughout. I had a bunch of lineups with those injuries, but you know the one that had Bernard, Rodgers, and Jordy Nelson and Arian Foster, you know, and the Redskins defense is enough to put you into the money and possibly in the big enough money that it cancels out those other GPP entries. What was that?
Sorry. Don't pay attention to me. I'm queuing up something.
Yeah, I got you. Anyway, yeah, it was tough. But what's nice about it? Go ahead, Renee.
I think it even argues for diversifying your cash game lineups.
It does, and that's why I don't like to play cash games in NFL too much.
Why?
I don't.
I
play heavy cash game volume in baseball and in basketball. I don't know. She's right. Diversify your cash games, but I just don't see the profit being there as much as I do with baseball and basketball. That's just my personal opinion.
There's so many people there, and so many numbnuts out there that why would there not be profit if you had 3 or 4 good lineups?
I understand that, but
I read an article this morning and I listed like 8 people that like have been ruled out for weeks that were in lineups on draft day this weekend because they have that roster trends tool. You can easily do that. But like Marvin Jones, Adrian Peterson, who else was in there? Like people that definitely weren't playing and haven't been playing for a really long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of numbnuts though that play a guy that. There's also a lot of numbnuts that play somebody that shouldn't have a good game and then ends up blowing
Not
up.
a lot.
I last year in the the DraftKings, the $27 DraftKings tournament, I followed the first place winner each week, and when I tell you the lineups blew my mind week to week to week. Granted, it's a GPP and we're talking cash games. I understand that, but some of the lineups that were winning the big money, the first place prize, were mind-blowing. So
That's saying the law of large numbers, though. I mean, someone is going to get lucky and hit it big. It's not like the best lineup is necessarily the best, like, winds up being the best lineup every single week.
I know you're filling in for Davis, but that doesn't mean you have to, like, speak in absolutes when it comes to illogical stuff.
Oh, stop it, man. I never do that. I'm just telling you that my personal opinion on football is that I profited a lot more with basketball and baseball. That's personally how I've done, and I don't see the need to play an overwhelming volume on cash games with NFL when it just hasn't been as productive and profitable for me as NBA and MLB. That's all I'm saying.
I understand that. I mean, that's the reason why I don't grind that many MLB games. But that's just because like I don't feel like I'm as good in MLB as I do in the other sports. So, like, I understand if it's not as profitable for you, but don't be just, throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks as far as reasoning goes. It's
oh my God, that's not what I'm doing.
Anyways,
and you just talk about a plethora of injuries that occurs, and
this just in. Steve Finkelstein says he's not talking crap about Steven Strasburg today because the Atlanta lineup is crap. This is shaping
that breaking news?
Yeah. Yes.
Steve always talks crap on Strasburg.
I'm pretty sure he's already talked crap since the lineup's been out. So I think Steve is a liar.
Oh, well, he's saying he's not. Here's what happens, though. He ends up being
playing
forced
Strauss
onto Strauss. Strauss gets shelled, and then Steve says, "Never again."
And he plays him every time. He hates him. He hates him from 9 a.m. to 6:55 p.m. And then Strauss finds his way into his lineup somehow, and it's misery from there on forward. But that lineup is terrible. I personally, if that lineup was any better, I would have been completely off of him. I had him in the 2 to trash today, and I got people weren't a huge fan of that because I didn't. Take the sabermetrics approach, and I used, as you guys call them, hot takes. But my personal philosophy, once again, is that Strasburg is not somebody I like. I wish Ben was on the show with me right now, and Steve. We'd be taking this one. But look, that lineup's so bad. It's so bad. So it's really tough not to like him. But I just love Jacob deGrom, and I think I can fit Kastner in with him and make a really solid lineup and not have to sweat playing Strasburg.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I like Strasburg once this lineup comes out a little bit more than deGrom, but it's not so much more that I think I'm going to play him over him on DraftKings because I think you can save a little bit of money, and deGrom's a really good play too. But on FanDuel, where you're only getting one pitcher, Strasburg is probably going to be my guy, and where pricing's a little softer, where you don't need to save the money as much.
Oh, man. It's going to be so entertaining with baseball tonight. It's going to be so entertaining because people are 0 or 100 on Strasburg. And you're going to
usual.
You're going to have people on the anti-Strasburg site that get talked over. The guys that say that they'll never play Strasburg no matter what. They're going to get talked on to Strasburg, and if he does bad, it's just going to... all hell's going to break loose again.
You only have yourself to blame for that. If you're a guy that never says, if you say you're never going to play Strasburg, then just don't play him and play someone else.
You hear that, Steve?
Because realistically,
I'm playing someone else.
Strasburg's upside isn't even that high.
Come on.
It's not. It's not. Dude, it's not that high.
You haven't seen it in a long time.
No, look, Strasburg can put together some great games. That's okay, I understand that. But when people are dead set on rostering this guy, you act like he could go out there and throw up 40 points on DraftKings whenever he wants. He doesn't have one 40-point DraftKings game this year. Granted, he's had some really nice games. I get that. He doesn't work as deep in the games as most elite pitchers, and he has control problems at times, albeit none lately. I just don't think that he's the type of guy. He's not in the same category as the other elite pitchers out there right now on a daily fantasy level for 11,400 on DraftKings. He isn't.
But it's not necessarily comparing him today to Felix and Kershaw and guys
Sure
like that.
it is.
It's comparing him to DeGrom and your other options today, and Scherzer. And
Right, and that's what I'm doing.
I think Strasburg, even though he hasn't put up like a 40-point game, I mean, he's had some bad luck this year.
Oh,
and
here we go.
and there's and there's a lot of underlying talent there. I'm probably not going to be playing Strasburg tonight on DraftKings, but if you do, it's not a bad play.
I want it to be upper-lying talent. How about that?
I don't know what that means.
I mean, I need to see some of it first. And I granted
We've seen it the past 4 or 5 years, and now he has a stretch of a few months with a batting average on balls in play that's a little too high, and he's like sucks, and he's a leper, and you can't touch him. Like, it's ridiculous.
I wouldn't say he's a leper. I'd shake his hand, but I'm saying that he's not. He's not a consistent at 11-4. He's not bringing the same consistency as other pitchers. I don't think there's any disputing that.
DeGrom is not like a safe guy for 10-9 or whatever he is. I mean, that's what I'm going to play probably, but you can't call him a safe play.
When you consider the game, all right, let's just consider the game log and take everything else out of the equation because results matter sometimes.
But the other things are what needs to be in the equation. You got to consider everything, not just what have you done for me lately.
Why not? This is daily fantasy baseball. This isn't a dynasty league.
No, but if you're predicting the future, you can't predict it based on recent history. You have to predict it based on everything.
I've been a pretty good future predictor in my past.
Have you ever watched this show when Derek's been on it before?
Yeah, Derek and I did the show for the whole first half of the season together. But no, yeah, I understand.
He's not making a new argument.
I'm just saying, man. Strasburg is one of those guys when he's this high priced. When Strasburg was in the 9K range on DraftKings, and like the upper 8 on FanDuel, there's no disputing that he's a great play. But when he gets this high up in price, I have a difficult time rostering him because I know what can come of it. Yes, he has underlying talent. Yes, he has upside. He has great stuff. But he also has the ability to get rocked. And when you take that salary into account and compare him, and it is comparing to other guys at that price because with guys at that price, they typically don't offer that same downside as Strasburg. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. But the Braves strike out a lot, so the K upside is one of Strasburg's biggest, on his pro side. So let's talk about somebody else. What about Cashner? How do you feel about Cashner tonight?
I like him.
Yeah, Cashner's the easy number 2 guy on DraftKings tonight for sure. He's one of the top plays overall. He's probably number 3 or 4 for me today.
Derek and I agree there.
Yeah, the price is great. So Cashner, kind of you got to lock in there.
Yeah, look, Philadelphia, despite being heavily left-handed, they have the 29th ranked weighted on base average against righties. That just shows you how bad of a baseball team they are. When you have, Derek, they roll out sometimes 6 lefties in that lineup. If not more.
Not as much. Franco's up.
And Rollins is out. You'll still see, you're going to see Cody Ashe, Don Brown, Ryan Howard. You're going to see Chase Utley. You might see Grady Sizemore.
Yeah.
So you could see 5 or 6 lefties in this lineup. Galvis is a switch hitter. Ben Revere is a lefty.
Yeah, they're going to have a really lefty lineup.
They will, but it doesn't mean that they can hit right-handed pitchers or any pitchers for that matter. Cashner's been awesome at home. They're an impatient baseball team too. So even if he doesn't, because the strikeouts haven't been there for him this year as much as you'd like, he's still the type of guy that could work an easy 7-8 innings just because of what Philadelphia offers at the plate, which isn't much.
Even though they're left-handed, they're not particularly good or threatening, especially when you consider that they play most of their games in a hitter's park. You throw them into Petco, where Cashner's going to have the home field advantage, and where lefties in general are just destroyed by the park. It's an incredible matchup for Cashner for what he's going to cost.
Any interest in Shoemaker?
Shoemaker, if Cashner wasn't in play today, Shoemaker would definitely be a guy that I'm looking at. He's getting up there a little bit in price. Looks like he's 8,800 on DraftKings. So when Cashner's in play, there's no way I'm spending that extra money for him. But he would be. I think he would round out my top 5 today. I like Shoemaker.
Right, he was my honorable mention in today's Daily Diamond article, and I think he's an awesome GPP option because
For sure.
Yeah. See, Derek and I usually agree. We talk every day about lineups. We usually agree, except Aramis Ramirez. But anyway, I think that when you look at Kastner's $7,100 price tag, compare that to other guys that have steeper tags than he does. His matchup is better. The price tag's better, and Derek, he's projected higher on your system. I like Shoemaker. I have him ranked like 5th or 6th overall, I believe. Probably lower now that Atlanta lineup came out. But, yeah, he's not bad. I just don't see him being a necessity in cash games. Somebody that does intrigue me, though, is James Shields at home against Chicago because they're heavily favored. John Danks is a poor left-handed pitcher, and Shields has been very solid. He's got 2 straight 32-plus fantasy point games on DraftKings. It's nice to see him pitching well, and he does have upside, which I'm always chasing, especially in strikeouts. So I don't have a problem with Shields. More so on FanDuel, where he's a lot cheaper. $8,900 is a great price, and $1,700 on draft day.
That's the thing. Yeah, I have Shields right below Shoemaker in my system, but on DraftKings he's 10-2, so he's too expensive given the other options. But he is a good play.
And if Rizzo wasn't in that lineup, I would target Alfredo Simon in GPPs.
Especially, I think there's some wind blowing in there in Wrigley,
There is.
so it's not going to play like a hitter's park like it normally does.
All right. Since we're, I think, fully entrenched in baseball, we can come back to football at the end. But let's just move on and talk about some of the hitters that you guys like tonight. So,
This will be easy.
so let me just ask a question. Derek knows I've been interested in this question for a long time. There's a couple relatively new pitchers taking the mound tonight. What's the scoop on these guys, like the guy from Minnesota, Swarzak?
Swarzak's been around for a while.
Yeah, he was in the pen.
That one I know.
Yeah, he was a starter for a while as like a prospect, and he was like a decent prospect. And he never developed into much. He moved to the bullpen. He's been there the past few years. Occasionally they'll give him a spot start, but for the most part, he's not a good pitcher. Rather, he's not like awful. He's not like Christian Bergman bad, but he is a bad pitcher.
And one of the reasons you have to be very leery about playing hitters against those guys that are coming from the bullpen is they may only get stretched out 3 or 4 innings. And then you don't know what you're walking into after that, whether a team has a good bullpen, whether you lose a platoon advantage for a guy that only only works his way into the lineup when he has the platoon advantage and is going to get yanked. So those are all things you have to... Excuse me?
No, I'm just agreeing. Those are all things you have to consider.
Right. So you want to consider everything, and that's why when you have a guy that may only pitch 3 innings, somebody like Rasmus for LA, they're giving him 3 innings, 4 innings. It's not worth it because you don't know what's going to come out of the bullpen later that game. Now, if you have done your research and you have a bullpen that is heavily left-handed or right-handed or is just terrible to begin with, then you're in good shape. And what's awesome about Derek's projection system is that it does account for bullpen quality of bullpen, which is nice. But targeting Swarzak, I don't think is a necessary risk tonight, only because we have so many other good options with pitchers that we're very familiar with their inadequacies.
And in better parks. I think there's so many. There's a lot better matchups than Detroit tonight against Swarzak.
Yep. Good. All right, so what are they? Who are you guys targeting first and foremost for stacks?
I mean, the Coors game, obviously. I mean, far and away, that's the best game to target tonight. Guys from both sides, the Dodgers and the Rockies. You got a great park. You have weak pitchers, and pitchers that don't profile particularly well in the parks. Like Hernandez is a ground ball guy who relies on a sinker 60% of the time. And even outside of Coors, he has trouble with leaving the sinker up and having to get hammered for home runs. So in a place like Coors, where it's not gonna drop as much, it's gonna be higher up in the zone to begin with, he's going to have a lot of trouble locating, and I think the Rockies are going to pound him.
Pound him.
Do you prefer the Rockies in this game then?
I think they're pretty even because Christian Bergman is just a bad pitcher in general. Like, even though Hernandez is a better pitcher, but he's still bad, and Bergman is just awful. I mean, he couldn't even strike out a league average amount of batters at AAA. Like, he's barely striking out like a batter a game now.
Yeah,
he's
and
just
we've talked about Coors suppressing strikeouts. So when you
Uh-huh.
look at Bergman, also Hernandez is far from a strikeout pitcher himself. So
No.
you have two guys that by no means are going to go out there and rack up 10 Ks. I would be surprised if they combined for 7 strikeouts tonight.
It's not like Bergman is Tyler Matzik, where there's some stuff there and he has the potential, like, to
Right.
overcome the obstacles and
Right.
strike out 7 or 8 guys. Bergman is just a bad pitcher. He's going to give up contact. They're going to be fly balls, and he's going to give up runs.
All right, so outside of course, where are you guys looking?
I like Kansas City. That's one spot I know Derek and I have both been targeting. It's unfortunate that Omar Infante is batting so far down in the lineup.
It's such
But
a shame.
It is, because he fit real well into the core stack. But I'm high on Josh Willingham tonight. At
You know what,
4,000
though?
What?
Sorry, no, keep going. I was just noticing Escobar is 3,600, so I mean, he's leading off for Kansas City tonight. He might just fit right in that Infante slot and slide D over to second.
You know what? That's workable. You could actually make something come of that. I have no problem with that at all. That's a good idea. Willingham though too at 4,000.
Uh-huh.
He's really
In
cheap.
the lineup.
He's not there tonight, yeah.
Oh, he isn't. Okay, that's unfortunate.
Lorenzo Cain is batting third, it looks like.
You know, have you noticed that Willingham is not in the lineup every time there's one of those really great matchups? It just seems like that.
It's frustrating, yeah.
Isn't it? Every time they're facing a weak lefty, Willingham's not in the lineup. I would have expected him to be in the lineup tonight against that. That sucks because 4,000 on DraftKings is super cheap too. I mean, for a guy that can double dong against a really poor pitcher like Danks, even at Kauffman Stadium, I think Willingham, and despite him not being that great of a hitter recently, I still liked him. But there's no need to continue talking about that. And what I'll probably do is squeeze another Dodger or Rockies bat into my lineup in the outfield.
Yeah, we got lineups there, and Wainoa, or however you pronounce his name, is in Colorado tonight, so he's going to be a great
Absolutely.
infield punt.
Absolutely. He was the guy that, Derek, when I sent you a lineup earlier today,
Yeah.
he was someone I had locked into my lineup, assuming that he was going to play. And what's nice about him on DraftKings is he's third base and shortstop eligible. So if you wanted to punt the shortstop position and spend a little higher, maybe on someone like Arenado or whoever you may want to spend on, that helps you out, because the shortstop position is typically something I like to punt. With D. Gordon being eligible at second base as well, you're going to have a ton of options tonight on multi-position eligibility sites.
Yeah, so Arenado's out too.
So maybe you're going to
I just-
spend on Adrian Gonzalez or someone then.
Yeah, I just checked the Colorado lineup. I didn't see it, but now I refreshed and it's up. I literally checked a minute before I looked. So I actually don't have a problem.
So he's in play tonight.
I don't have a problem with Arenado being out of the lineup. I like that. You can play Noah and not have to worry about Arenado hitting a home run and he's not being in your lineup. So there's a lot of opportunity in both of these lineups. Carl Crawford, lefty against the right-handed Bergman. He's batting 6. I can handle that. Now, Derek and I, here, I'll give you this, Renee, because this is something that I'm sure a lot of people are debating. Yasiel Puig, I'm probably going to fade him tonight. Derek, where are you on that?
I am likely going to fade Puig because him and Kemp, especially, it's going to be harder to fade him on FanDuel where he's cheaper than Kemp, but on DraftKings they're both the same price. They're both, I think, 4,500.
Yeah.
So since your outfield is probably going to be Blackmon and Dickerson, and then one of those two, I think Puig and Kemp, even though Puig projects slightly higher, he's just been so cold lately that I don't think there's it's an unnecessary risk to put Puig in there when you can put Kemp in, who has been fine and looks good and has the same awesome matchup.
Or even Kadire at the exact same price.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so I think on FanDuel, Puig's cheaper. He's going to be a little more difficult to fade. I still might, depending on the structure of what the rest of my lineup looks like. But on DraftKings, it's going to be Kemp over Puig.
Any insider ideas on what's going on with Puig?
I don't know. I mean, the one
Brandon
thing
Moss
it could be is just it could be fatigue. I mean, he's not used to playing such a long schedule. In Cuba, they play, I don't know what it is, 60 or 80 games or something. So he's only been over in the States a couple years. He could just be wearing down.
Yeah, and last season he didn't break into the league until you know, close to the All-Star break.
The All-Star break.
Yep.
All right. You guys interested in any Astros bats against McAllister?
Not particularly. Not just because it's such a stacked night for bats.
Yeah, tonight, if you're not going in your cash games like heavily Colorado, LA, with just picking and choosing, filling guys in for extra spots, whether it's Escobar or, whoever, I think you're making a mistake in your cash games.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem to be worth it because Houston, the Astros team is one of those squads where they're better suited for GPPs anyway due to their unpredictability.
Yeah, their boomer bust nature.
Absolutely.
That being said, I mean, I don't think McAllister is as bad of a pitcher as his ERA indicates, and as much as people think he is, he's, a little bit below average. So on a normal night, there'd probably be some Astros in play. In GPPs, maybe there'll be some Astros in play, Grossman or Fowler or Carter, or even Kraus batting fifth. Right. But on a night like this, I think it's unnecessary.
All right, you guys are predicting everyone to have the same lineup tonight.
Similar.
Take advantage of that. All right, you want to do quick position by position? I don't know how much.
Sure.
If you're just going to say Dodgers and Rockies.
No, it might just be easier to give you the pitchers that we're targeting against.
Yeah.
I think Bergman and Hernandez are two of the obvious ones, so we don't need to go much further there. Another under the radar one. I know Derek likes Chris Capuano, but I don't think he's nearly as talented as he does. And maybe I'm wrong, but he got touched up by Tampa just the other day. He went a third of an inning, and while that isn't an indicator of what's going to happen tonight, Tampa's got enough quality right-handed talent and cheap right-handed bats in that lineup that could definitely pan out. Now, that game was in New York, so
that's what I was just going to say. You got to consider
I know.
That
I'm not going to let you get there, but don't worry. I cover everything. But,
all right.
But still, he's not that great of a pitcher. And if you're looking to target somebody outside of this Colorado game, I would take a look at, a couple Tampa Bay bats, despite what Derek's about to say.
Which is that Chris Capuano is an above-average pitcher, and he's in a great pitcher's park, and I against it.
He's okay, dude. He's okay.
My love for him is slight. I can admit that it's slightly irrational.
Slightly. You're not biased at all.
No. He's still so much better than people give him credit for.
Well, we'll talk.
What does this mean?
I would much rather target, if I'm targeting someone from that game, I would rather target some of the Yankees lefties against Column A with Casali catching.
Yeah, I have a very difficult time playing any Yankee lefties at this point. They have destroyed me. They have stolen much of my money, and I just can't do it. I cannot play them, and whenever I don't play them, they go off. But there's something about those Yankees bats,
it's
lefty, righty.
Half of them are hurt. Teixeira and Beltran are playing hurt. McCann's got the shift thing. Right. Gardner's coming off an injury. I mean, I guess really when I say Yankees lefties, I guess I mean Ellsbury.
Right.
Yeah, but even then, it's not like he has a lot of support. So.
And I would also take a Travis Wood's getting destroyed by right-handed bats.
Right.
And
say Cincinnati.
Yeah, he struggles against them.
Except the win there makes it.
It does. It does. It's just difficult for me not to like Devin Mesoraco hitting cleanup. He could have a huge game, but he's severely overpriced in a lot of places. He really is. It's hard to pay $48 for Mesoraco, but
Gindi has a lot of Travis Wood love tonight.
A lot of
What's
Travis
that?
Wood
He's
love.
devastated that we're talking about taking Mazzaraco against Travis Wood.
Wait, is this Gindi or Dink?
No, Gindy started it. Dink agreed for a second, but Gindy's the ringleader.
That's disappointing.
I'm not too
It's
interested in
just
that game at all.
hard on him.
But you're asking for options outside of course field, so trying to give them to you here.
Yeah, no, I like Mazzaraco. He's on my radar for sure.
Yeah, honestly, I think after Colorado, Royals bats would be guys that I'm looking at.
Right.
Salvi Perez, maybe a catcher. Alcides Escobar leading off. Even Lorenzo Cain batting third, I'm cool with. And then after that, maybe it is like Tigers, like you were kind of saying before, or Houston. I don't know. Not a lot to. On a normal night, I might have a little bit of love for Alejandro De Aza, but he's up to 4K on DraftKings now, and the matchup isn't great. So.
And with the way that San Francisco's been hitting recently, Chase Field is not a conducive ballpark to pitching, and I could see some love for Buster Posey, for sure.
Posey, because of the park and because the underlying talent's so good. But Miley's not a bad pitcher.
And he's a lot better than many people make him out to be. However, Miley's also susceptible to getting rocked on occasion. Like, he's one of those guys that can go out there and just get torched. So
Right, that's my impression.
What does Posey cost? Because he is Posey and because it's the park and the platoon, he's definitely going to be one of the best options at catcher tonight. Is he more than like Rosario or Salvi?
He's 45. He's less than Mazzaraco. Rosario's dirt cheap on DraftKings. Dirt cheap.
Yeah.
Like 3,400.
Like 35 or something, yeah.
Wow.
But I just can't stand playing Rosario, so that makes it difficult for me to even keep him on my radar. I think, Sal Perez hasn't helped me much at all lately either, but at 3,500, you have Sal Perez or you have Rosario. I think I'd have to go Perez in that situation.
Yeah, I think it's really close. It's splitting hairs. I could see going either way. I'd probably leaning Rosario right now, but I could see Perez.
You're leaning Rosario?
Did not mean for it to come out like that. That's why I tried to clarify.
Well done. You could take credit. All right, what about, let's go with a few value off the radar GPP plays, maybe in the outfield. Any cheap outfielders?
I have trouble even looking at value there because there's so many good options. I'm sorry, from that Coors game, there's just so much there. Derek, I'll let you handle this in terms of value.
I feel like we're being a little dictatorish if we just tell everybody.
It's tough because a lot of nights there are good values. Like De Aza was so cheap for a while, or Travis Snyder, or like whoever's in Texas's lineup. But tonight, a lot of those guys aren't in play. I would give you Lorenzo Cain if he counts. I think he's probably a top 10 or 12 or 15 outfielder tonight now that he's batting third against Danks.
Maybe Ender Inciarte against Vogelsong.
He's pretty cheap still, so yeah. I can get behind that.
But yeah, it's not as much dictatorish, Renee, as it is. There's so many good plays from that game, and it's hard to overlook them. But
Robbie Grossman maybe, but mostly I think your outfield is
going to say, Derek.
What?
That's what I was trying to get you to say.
Oh, all right.
Kraus is batting fifth.
Yeah, Kraus
and
is a cheap guy.
He's outfield eligible on DraftKings and draft day. So there are options there. Don't get me wrong. There are some options that you can pick from, but
they're not as strong as they normally are, and you don't need them tonight, I don't think.
Right, that's the issue. If you want to play Strasburg and DeGrom, then you're going to have to find some value out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, look, if you want to go with some right-handed outfielders, just make your way over to that Cincinnati lineup. So, Rodriguez, Borges, who else? Where's the other outfielder they got?
Negron, does he qualify outfield, I think?
I think he does it draft.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
I think he does.
You could get some value there. I know Gindy isn't happy about that. That lineup's terrible. That lineup is so terrible, that Cincinnati lineup. Rodriguez, Borges, Santiago, Elmore, Negron. Outside of Hamilton, who doesn't hit as well against lefties, and Frazier and Mesoraco, there's really not much to be concerned about. So, while I like some individual bats in that Cincinnati lineup, Travis Wood might not be a terrible, GPP. But here's the problem: he's going to face 9 righties.
Yeah.
As a GPP guy, especially with some wind blowing in, I can totally see Wood tonight because he is really cheap. So I can get behind that. And that's one of the reasons why Mesoraco, I don't mind that he's overpriced tonight because I'm not on him because his run and RBI opportunities are going to be so depressed by that terrible lineup.
Is the wind really blowing in strong enough to overreach the threshold, whatever the 10 to 15 mile an hour?
It's honestly a good question because
last I checked it was 11. I don't know.
There's something about him I'm just not huge on tonight. And Chen isn't a terrible pitcher.
No, he's not. E5's always going to be a good play, just not tonight. There's better ones.
Yep. Watch, he hits 3 home runs.
And he could. I mean, he's probably a top 3 or 4 first baseman tonight. But 1 and 2 are Agon and Morneau. So you don't fade that. You don't mess with that.
Mm-hmm.
The same price. All right, Art Vandalay wants us to guarantee dogs outside of Coors. So your guaranteed dogs, obvious and off the radar, have to come from another game.
That's doable. Go ahead, Derek.
Okay, give me a sec. Let me find some non-Coors dongs. And the thing about Coors, too, everyone makes it out to be this huge power park, but it does so much more for hitters. Yeah. My obvious one outside of Coors would be Edwin tonight. Edwin or Chris Carter. I mean... And then if I want more under the radar, how about Lucas Duda?
Okay. And Coors, like I said, Coors turns, or like you just said, it turns singles into doubles and doubles into triples. It's not just home runs.
Yeah. And it turns strikeouts into balls in play.
Exactly. So when you're someone like D. Gordon, you're a must play.
Mm-hmm.
I think
D. Gordon ranks easily the top overall tonight because Coors is such a perfect park for him.
Yes. Devin Mesoraco will be my guarantee, despite the wind. And you know what? Let's go with Salvador Perez as an under-the-radar dong against John Danks.
Nice.
I
was going to take Mesoraco, so I'll pivot to Victor Martinez.
You don't sound very confident.
I'm not. And Mark Krause for under the radar. I go way under when I go under. All right, let's go back to football just for a minute because there is a game tonight, and a lot of big tournaments around the industry will be decided by players in tonight's game. As best I can figure out, some of the key guys that are gonna, with big performances, maybe put someone into the top money are like Zach Ertz, Reggie Wayne.
It's gonna be T.Y. Hilton, Renee.
T.Y. Hilton will probably.
He's gonna be the one.
Ahmad Bradshaw is somebody.
You could go on forever with this.
Well, I don't know.
With a Monday night game,
yeah,
the amount of players that are, I don't want to say heavily owned, but have a good amount of usage. Like Andrew Luck, for instance. If Andrew Luck doesn't have the game that most people are expecting, that's going to be huge. That's going to swing a lot because Aaron Rodgers already had a big game and a couple other quarterbacks already had a big game. So with Andrew Luck, a lot of people are relying on him, myself included, to have a big game. And if Andrew Luck doesn't have a big game, odds are that several other Indianapolis pass catchers aren't going to have big games either.
Naturally, right, yeah.
So, while I think that he will, I think it's pivotal to deciding on who wins in GPPs tonight, depending on what's going on. I haven't looked at every GPP, but Reggie Wayne, T.Y. Hilton, even taking the tight ends into consideration in Indianapolis. And like you said, Ahmad Bradshaw, he could do something too. But I think T.Y. Hilton, I got, Dan and Davis gave me some hard time for this, but I think T.Y. Hilton could have a really big game. Because
he's just as likely to have a 0.
He is, but we're talking about GP. We're talking about GPPs
He
here.
hasn't played
he's
cash
the kind of
games.
player you want in GBP.
Right, sure. But when you look at how this Philadelphia offense is, their quarterbacks are terrible, first of all, and they struggle so bad with those stretch routes with the long ball. I just see Andrew Luck going over the top a million times tonight, and hitting Ty at least once or twice on a long touchdown. All he needs is one long touchdown. And if Philadelphia defense has proven one thing, they're very apt to giving up those long touchdowns.
Yeah. Yep.
That's the only reason I like him. But yeah, you're right. He could go up and give you a -1, have one catch for 1 yard and a fumble. So, Reggie Wayne is the safer play because the targets are always going to be there for Reggie Wayne. But T.Y. Hilton at 5,000 on DraftKings because he's really cheap. And I'm pretty sure, Dave, you would probably know better than I would what he was on FanDuel. But
I can look it up because
I don't remember either, but it was
pretty
close to that. It was in that same 5K range.
right.
Yeah.
And I guess, Renee, the reason I mention it is because Reggie Wayne's only $5,300 on DraftKings. They're $300 apart, which makes things really interesting when you're building a lineup because a lot of people in GPPs aren't going to take both of them.
Who do you think wins tonight?
Well, I have this on, but I'm real nervous about this. I don't feel good about the Eagles. Dave likes to call it reverse homerism because I use it with the Phillies a lot.
I know.
Phillies are terrible, but I expect a high-scoring game. And
You need the Eagles, really. I mean, between the Phillies and the 76ers.
Okay, Renee. Okay.
Indy is favored in this.
Excuse me?
Indy is favored in this.
By 3, though, right? And they're at home.
Right.
So
you've got to get the edge to. I mean, you have reason to be nervous because.
Right. But I'm saying when you're favored by 3 at home, they're looking at this as close as it gets. Really, this is 3-point favorite at home means that it's basically very difficult game to call.
Yeah.
But McCoy too. I saw McCoy in a ton of GPP lineups, and Foles. I know Dan had taken Foles, and a lot of people are going to have him too. He's not going to be as highly owned as Luck, not even close. But there's just so many good fantasy options tonight, and I'm excited for this one.
Well, Vegas had it as the highest scoring game of the week, so no surprise that it's going to be heavily.
Yeah. I was thinking like a 35-32 game.
I played like 5 games total, including a late game, just because I didn't get a lot of action in. It was a 5:35, and the guy against me played Chris Johnson. Out of all the options, he played Chris Johnson. But hey, cash games aren't profitable because that Chris Johnson pick was a good pick according to Laffy.
When did Laffy say that it was a good pick?
Well, because you're saying that the reason why cash games you don't have an edge is because
produce the show, Dave.
Because everybody plays players that go off.
Chris Ivory yesterday.
What's that?
I had some Chris Ivory yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead, Dave. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Trash me.
Open up, dude.
I mean, I really don't want to.
You don't even show us your face. You just chime in when you feel it's necessary, and it's not fair. Okay? It's not fair.
I think you invited him. You invited him.
I asked him a question.
Salary.
Yeah. No.
So how much is T.Y. Hilton on FanDuel?
He's 60.
Yeah, it's in the chat.
6,400.
Okay, thanks.
I think got it.
Yeah. So I'm up on that guy with 20 by 20 points with Foles and Ertz and Hilton left. But hey, he's probably next week he'll probably win all his cash games, right, Luffy?
No, GPPs.
Oh, he'll win a GPP.
Yeah,
okay.
For sure.
Well, I think Luffy's going to be on the show tomorrow for when he does more comparisons about how GPPs mean logic for cash game plays. So
GPPs mean logic.
Yeah.
Yeah, Laffy won't be on the show tomorrow. How about that?
Oh, I would just want to reiterate one thing that's been talked about kind of a lot in a lot of different venues, but this whole plan or strategy of getting in the Thursday games and using all Sunday players. So I entered the same line, just to kind of, for fun, entered the same Sunday-only lineup into Thursday start games and Sunday start games. and both of them had AJ Green. And my Thursday lineups all cashed, and my Sunday are likely to, and my Sunday only are like dead, really dead. So I was kind of impressed that it was such a strong effect.
Yeah, absolutely. And now consider that when you have guys that are questionable heading into those games, and a lot of people
I
don't
didn't mean anybody questionable,
right?
As far as I knew, and
that's a nice little. That's kind of cool though that you ran the same lineup and followed it.
Just 50-50s.
Yeah.
It makes sense too. The only thing is, a lot of people with sites like FanDuel will go in and look at other players' lineups, to see what they're using, and then apply it to the Sunday games. So, yeah, I'm with you on that. They can be very profitable. You'll see guys in Thursday games that have everybody from that game just because they want action.
Yeah.
Well, a casual player isn't going to play a Thursday game unless he plans on, playing guys from it and watching it. Like, they're not thinking that much ahead or thinking that much about profit. So, I mean, it makes total sense.
Well, to you, but not to Laffy, because of GPPs on Thursday night.
Dude,
I mean,
you misconstrue everything I say. All I said was that I prefer to play heavier volume in cash games with other sports. And you're making it seem like I am condemning cash games in NFL. Don't play them.
You said there's no edge.
No, I said that I personally am more profitable in other sports.
That's how I remember it.
Well, yeah, I do remember you saying that
Renee.
after you said that.
Thank you, Renee.
Renee, stay out of this.
I like when everyone gets along.
Yeah, me too. But this guy, the man behind the mask over here, has to chime in and knock me down. I don't get it, Dave. I don't get it.
Listen, you won $20,000 last week. I'm not feeling sorry for you at
25.
all.
But no, you're right.
The 20,000 was just the one contest. He was in more than that, Dave.
Hey, Derek.
25.
Renee just bragged, and then Dave just bragged. Do you have anything you want to? I mean, really, when Derek's the one not bragging, you know that something is wrong.
I usually stay quiet with that stuff, man. But you brought it up. Hey, Derek had an awesome night.
Really a brag. I talked about also how bad my Sunday lineup did.
No,
So-
you were making a. She wasn't bragging. She was
And
proving.
you were talking about it for, like, educational, scientific purposes. It wasn't like a brag. I mean,
Exactly,
it was.
that's
like,
exactly what I was
covered
doing.
it up really well, Renee.
I mean, it was science.
Science.
Yeah. All right. Well, that will do it for the show, and special thanks to all of our wonderful hosts, Renee Miller, Dr. Renee Miller. You can reach her on Twitter at Renee Miller, and no, that's not your name. It's Renee Miller 01 underscore 01.
Underscore one, yeah.
Why do you use the underscore? I do not
I
understand.
use an underscore.
You don't?
No.
Okay.
I
That's
don't
me,
either.
buddy.
Oh, that's right. It's Dave. Oh, yeah, I forgot. It's Dave that does it.
Yep. It's not profitable not to have an underscore.
Well-
No edge. No edge at all.
When you talk about underscore next to the hyphen, yeah. So Dave Lochran, a.k.a. Laffy Dude, does a wonderful job with the podcast if you're not listening already. And then Derek Carty. And you guys rock. We'll be back on the show tomorrow for a big MLB slate. Strasburg, yay or nay? Are you using him, yay or nay? Renee?
Nay.
Derek?
Renee, right?
Nay.
On DraftKings, not. If I was playing on FanDuel, which I probably won't be, I would likely use Strasburg on FanDuel. But on DraftKings, I'm taking the discount on DeGrom and Cashner.
And
I was real tough on him earlier, and I still am. But I won't be using him, but I won't blame you for using him just because of how bad that Atlanta matchup is.
Yeah, ditto.
But nothing at all to do with how good of a pitcher he is. Just to clarify.
Absolutely
Laffy's
not,
point.
man. I'd throw Bartolo Colon out there against that lineup.
Bartolo Colon's a good pitcher too.
he's an
Not for
average
daily
pitcher in a good park.
fantasy. But he's not bad. But not for daily. Not for daily.
All right, well, that will do it for the show tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you then.
Night.
I love Pink Floyd.
Take that back, Laffy.
What'd you say?
But do not compare you to Pink Floyd.